Hello guys, close your eyes and imagine you are in ancient Rome, long ago. The first pale light of dawn is just beginning to glow above the rooftops. In the dim one-room apartment around you, other bodies stir beneath thin blankets. The air is cool and smells of yesterday's smoke. A small oil lamp flickers low, casting tremulous shadows on walls stained black with years of soot. You lie on a straw-filled mat on the floor, the straw poking through the rough fabric and itching your skin. A flea bites at your ankle, and you groggily scratch it away. Above you, the timber ceiling beams creak as the family upstairs begins to rise. From outside comes the distant rattle of wooden wheels on stone and the braying call of a donkey. The city is waking. You sit up slowly in the gloom. There is no glass in the tiny window, only a wooden shutter you left ajar for a breath of night air. Through that gap floats the smell of damp alleyways mixed with acrid smoke from cooking fires. You can also detect less pleasant odors, human waste tossed in the gutter, sour wine spilled and gone rank, the pervasive ammonia reek from the fuller's shop down the street where cloth is cleaned in stale urine. These are the morning scents of a Roman city quarter, familiar and foul in equal measure. If you find comfort in these quiet journeys through the past, feel free to like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Also, I'd love for you to share in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. It's always so interesting to see how far and wide these quiet moments reach. Now as dawn comes, imagine standing up and stretching your tired limbs. The floor is cold terracotta under your bare feet. It's cracked in places and gritty with dust and the residue of daily life. All around you in this cramped room, people are stirring. You share the space not only with your own family, but with a couple of strangers too. Lodgers taken in to help pay the rent. In the meager dawn light, you see the outline of your younger brother curled up under a threadbare wool blanket, and beyond him the elderly tanner who rents a corner near the door. The old man's breath rattles softly. He coughs in his sleep, a deep chesty cough from years of inhaling hide fumes. You step carefully past him, taking care not to bump the brazier in the center of the room. It has burnt out coals from last night, the only source of warmth in the chilly dark. You shiver and pull a thin cloak around your shoulders. In one corner, your mother is already awake, kneeling over a small clay jar. She mutters a quiet morning prayer, lips barely moving as she offers a pinch of flour at the household shrine on a shelf, a little wooden niche with two tiny clay figurines of the household gods. You close your eyes for a moment and do the same, whispering a drowsy invocation to the guardian spirits of the home, asking for protection through another day. Outside, a chorus of city sounds grows louder, distant laughter of a street vendor joking with a neighbor, the shrill cry of a hawker starting his rounds with some hot bread, the clank of a blacksmith's hammer striking metal in a nearby workshop. The walls of your insula, this tall, crowded apartment building, are thin and every sound seeps through. From somewhere below comes the wail of a baby who is woken hungry. From above, on the creaking timber stairs, heavy footsteps of someone descending quickly, perhaps late for work. This insula is 5 stories high, a teetering stack of small flats and shops at the street level. Your room is on the 3rd floor, high enough that the stairs leave you breathless each day, but not so high as the cheapest garrets under the roof. Those top floors sway when the wind blows, and in rainstorms water leaks through the ceiling cracks. Here on the 3rd floor, you at least avoid the worst of the leaks and drafts. Still, the walls are chipped plaster over flimsy bricks, and they do little to keep out the noise or the smells. You are used to living cheek by jowl with others, hearing your neighbors argue through the wall, smelling their cooking or the garlic on their breath. Privacy is non-existent, Life is shared whether you like it or not. At night, you often lie awake listening to the old couple next door, murmuring, or a mouse scrabbling in the rafters. The timber floorboards under your feet now are slightly sticky. Someone spilled some olive oil last night. It's never truly clean here. Your mother hands you a bit of bread saved from yesterday. It's gone hard and dry. She also pours a little weak wine into a clay cup and dilutes it with water from a jug. This morning meal is simple and silent. There is no energy for chatter yet. All of you are still waking, bracing for another long day. You dip the hardened crust of barley bread into the watered wine to soften it. The wine is sour, more vinegar than not, but it moistens the bread enough to chew. Biting into it, you taste the acidic tang mixed with the coarse, yeasty bread. It's not much, but it will have to do. Warm food is a rarity for breakfast. There's no time or fuel to cook porridge at home, and fires are risky in these crowded quarters. Everyone knows someone whose lamp or stove sparked a blaze that swept through an entire block of insulae. Just a month ago, a few streets over, a nighttime cooking fire got out of hand, and 3 whole buildings went up in flames before the bucket brigade extinguished it. The memory of the screams and crackling timbers haunts many light sleepers around here. So this morning, as always, you eat your crust of bread cold and think it a fair trade for safety. As you eat, you dress yourself in the early light. You pull on a simple tunic, once off-white but now permanently grayish from many washings and harsh lye. Over it, you tie a rope belt. Your sandals await by the door. Well-worn leather thongs, much mended. The soles are thin, nearly coming apart at the seams. You wiggle your toes and decide to save the sandals for later. For now, barefoot will do. Many in this neighborhood go barefoot unless they're traveling far or need to impress someone. The street outside is rough cobblestone and dirt, littered with refuse, but your toughened soles can handle it, or so you hope. Your father, already up and adjusting his tunic, casts a worried glance your way. Rent is due at the end of the week, and coins are scarce. The landlord's agent will come scratching with his stylus at the door of each unit to mark down payments on his wax tablet. If you don't have the copper cesters ready, you could lose your space or face a fine. It's a constant worry, quietly etched into your parents' faces. You all must work hard today, and every day, just to keep this dingy room over your heads. The rickety door opens onto the communal stairwell, a narrow wooden staircase that coils down through the building. It's barely lit by small openings cut here and there, and at this hour it's cloaked in shadow. You step outside your door and almost stumble on a bump. One of your neighbors has left a chamber pot on the landing again. It's full from the night, waiting to be emptied. You wrinkle your nose at the pungent smell of urine. Carefully, you sidestep it and begin to descend the stairs. The wooden steps groan under even your light weight, and you grip the splintery rail for balance. A moist stickiness on one step gives you pause. Someone spilled something, or perhaps missed their pot in the dark. You swallow your disgust and keep going, stepping over the offending patch. Down you go, passing doorways of other tiny apartments like your own. Through one cracked door, you glimpse a family packed into a single room, children still sleeping 2 to a mat. Through another, an old woman already spinning wool by lamplight, her foot working the pedal of a creaking spinning wheel. A baby's crying intensifies on the first floor, accompanied by a young mother's tired shushing. The cries pierce the quiet of dawn, but no one will complain. A crying infant is part of the tapestry of sound everyone expects in these close quarters. At last, you reach the ground floor, which opens directly onto the street. You push aside a rough curtain that serves as a door and emerge into the early morning light. The street here is a narrow lane, still mostly in shadows cast by the tall insulae crowding either side. Already there are people moving about. Across the way, A shopkeeper is unlatching the wooden shutters of his taberna, a tiny shop selling olives and cheap wine. He yawns as he sets out a couple of clay amphorae and a stack of chipped cups for the day's customers. Beside his shop, a scrawny dog noses through a pile of discarded cabbage leaves, searching for anything edible. You take a deep breath of the outside air. It's hardly fresher than inside, but it's cooler and carries the blends of the waking city. A new wave of smells greets you. Yesterday's garbage not yet collected from the gutters, the sharp odor of a smithy's forge heating up down the block, and the yeasty aroma of fresh bread drifting from a bakery somewhere nearby. The bread scent sets your stomach rumbling softly. You've eaten only a little and will likely feel hungry again soon, but you push that thought aside and turn your mind to the tasks ahead. Before you start walking, you adjust your tunic and pat down your hair, trying to make yourself a bit presentable. There is a public fountain around the corner where you'll wash your face quickly. As you step carefully onto the uneven cobblestones, you hear the squelch of something underfoot. Looking down, you realize you've stepped in a patch of muck, likely horse or mule droppings left from a cart that passed in the night, mixed with mud from yesterday's brief rain. Sighing, you wipe your soiled foot on a scrap of straw near the gutter and carry on. This is normal. The streets are never truly clean. Even though the city has caretakers who sweep main roads, in these back lanes filth accumulates. Scraps of rotting vegetables, animal dung, and human waste tossed from windows all find their way underfoot. As you walk, the city truly awakens around you. From an open doorway ahead, two men lug out a large clay jar sloshing with its contents. They carry it to the curb and dump it into the gutter with a foul splash, likely night soil being disposed of. A sudden wave of stench hits your nose, and you instinctively hold your breath and step to the side to avoid the dark stream that trickles towards the drain. The men shrug at you apologetically. One calls out a half-hearted warning to watch your step. You nod and continue, eyes averted. It's an everyday hazard. Chamber pots get emptied like this each morning, adding to the runoff that will eventually drain, or else bake into the street until the next rain. Wiping a drop of unknown liquid from your foot, you carry on down the lane. Overhead, the sky grows lighter, a clear pale blue promising a hot day. Laundry lines crisscross between upper windows of the buildings, some hanging so low you could almost reach up and touch the draped tunics and bed sheets swaying gently. You duck under one damp sheet that drips water onto the cobbles. The sounds of voices bounce between the building walls. A vegetable seller wheels his handcart over the stones, its wooden wheels clattering. He's singing a loud, off-key tune to advertise his produce, hoping to catch early customers. From a side alley emerges a cluster of laborers heading to work, a couple of young men with shovels over their shoulders, and a skinny teenage boy carrying a basket of tools. They all look as tired as you feel. One of them is chewing on something, perhaps a few olives skewered on a twig, a poor man's breakfast on the go. At the street corner, you come upon the public fountain. It's a simple stone basin fed by an aqueduct line, where water pours constantly from a spout shaped like a wolf's head. Two women are already there filling clay jugs with water, likely for their household's daily use. A little girl stands with them, rubbing her eyes and stifling a yawn as her mother balances a full jug on her hip. You nod in greeting, and they nod back. Taking your turn at the fountain, you splash the cool water on your face and neck. It wakes you up fully. The water is refreshingly cold, having traveled through underground lead pipes from some distant spring outside the city. You cup a few palmfuls and drink. The taste is generally clean, though with a hint of minerals and perhaps a note of metal from the pipes. Still, you're grateful for a drink of clean water before you begin your workday. Many families in history before the aqueducts had to rely on wells or rainwater, but here you have Rome's famous engineering to thank for this small luxury. Refreshed, You offer a quick silent thanks to the spirit of the fountain and step aside as an older man comes with a bucket. He wears the leather apron of a smith, his face already smudged with charcoal from lighting his forge. Everyone is beginning their day in earnest now. You look down the road toward the forum, where your work will take you this morning. The narrow lane joins a wider street ahead, and from that direction you hear a rising din, the calls of more vendors, the creak of cart axles, and the steady clopping of hoofs. Although heavy wagons are banned inside the city during daylight, plenty of handcarts and mule-drawn deliveries still jostle through the streets at first light, trying to get business done early. The thought crosses your mind that out on the larger streets, you'll need to keep your wits about you to avoid being jostled or stepped on. In crowded Rome, walking is a constant negotiation, dodging men on litters, soldiers marching in step, stray animals underfoot, and the occasional cascade of slops flung from above. As if on cue, a short way down the street, a loud crash startles you, the sound of pottery smashing. You see a man ahead curse and jump back, nearly dropping his own bundle. You can't see what fell, but you can guess. Perhaps a careless resident knocked a jug off a windowsill or emptied some trash without looking. Shaking his fist, the man wipes something off his sleeve. As you near the spot, you step around the shards of a broken clay pot and the messy splatter of its contents, which, judging by the smell, might have been a mix of dirty wash water and kitchen scraps. Incidents like these are why many joke that you should wear a helmet just to walk at night, or make your will before strolling under the eaves. It's a dangerous city for the unwary, even before the sun is fully up. Now fully awake, you clutch your cloak around you and stride on toward your day's labors, joining the flow of Roman life as the sun's first rays peek over the tiled roofs behind you. The sun climbs higher as you make your way toward the bustling heart of the city. By the time you reach the broader avenue leading into the Forum, Rome is fully awake and humming with activity. This is where you often find day work, among the crowds of traders, porters, and builders looking for extra hands. You join a small knot of other laborers gathered near a statue of Mercury at the street corner. Some you recognize by sight. Tough, sunburnt men with sleeves rolled up, ready to sweat for a wage. A heavy-set foreman with a red cloth tied around his head is scanning the group, looking for workers. He represents a contractor in charge of repairing one of the public buildings, and today he needs bodies to haul materials. He barks out that he'll pay 1 denarius for a half-day of hauling stone blocks from the yard to the building site. It's grueling work, but coin is coin. You and a few others step forward. The foreman's eyes quickly assess your frame. You're wiry but used to labor, and he nods for you to join. Along with 4 other men, you fall in behind him as he leads you to the work site. Soon you find yourself in a chaotic construction area on the edge of the Forum. All around, there's the din of building, hammers clanging on chisels, workers shouting measurements, the scrape of wooden sledges being dragged over stone. The foreman directs you to a stack of cut stones, thick, rectangular blocks freshly ferried in from a quarry outside the city. They're destined to repair a portico that partly collapsed last winter. Each block is heavy, at least a few hundred pounds. Of course you won't lift one alone. Instead, you and another fellow slide 2 long wooden poles underneath as makeshift handles, turning the block into a litter of sorts. With 1 man at each end of the poles, you hoist the stone waist high. Immediately your muscles protest. It's like lifting a full-grown man. The weight bows the poles slightly and forces you to hunch forward as you walk. Steady now, your partner grunts from the other end. Together you shuffle across the yard toward the scaffolding where the stone is needed. The crushed rock and dust underfoot crunch with each step. Fine white powder from lime and marble dust coats everything here. Soon your toes and ankles are caked in pale gray, and every breath you take carries a chalky taste. By the time you set the stone down in the indicated spot, your arms burn and your back twinges. You stretch your shoulders, trying to loosen the knot already forming between them. There's no time to rest. There are dozens more blocks to move. Again, you and the other haulers maneuver the poles under a stone and begin the arduous trudge. The morning grows warmer, the sunlight glaring off the bright dust that hangs in the air. Sweat starts to bead on your forehead and trickle down your back. As you work, you pass by a pair of skilled stonemasons who are chipping away at a column drum. They wear kerchiefs over their noses to avoid inhaling too much of the fine stone dust, but even so they both cough periodically, the sound dry and harsh. One mason's forearms are crisscrossed with old white scars from flying chips of marble. He barely notices when a new speck cuts his cheek. On your third trip hauling a stone, your grip slips slightly and the sharp edge of the block scrapes your forearm. You wince and set the block down carefully. A thin line of blood appears through the white dust on your skin. It's a small wound, and you wipe it with the corner of your cloak, leaving it to clot on its own. There's no physician here to fuss over a scratch. You simply carry on. Around you, minor injuries are common and ignored. A smashed thumb from a slipped hammer, a bruised foot from a dropped tool. Unless it's truly incapacitating, everyone works through the pain. A deep cut might be rinsed with a splash of wine and wrapped in a rag. Then its owner will be back lifting and carrying within the hour. Nearby, a crew of slaves mixes mortar in a shallow pit. They churn the lime, sand, and ash with water using hose, the paste splattering their legs. The caustic wet lime has bleached their tunics and likely burns any unhealed cuts on their skin, but they dare not slow down. An overseer stands over them, a knotted rope in his hand. Faster, he snaps, and the slaves redouble their efforts, muscles straining, sweat pouring. One young man stumbles under the weight of a water bucket. Instantly, the overseer steps forward and lashes him once across the back with the rope. The slave muffles a cry and quickly rights himself, resuming work with tremulous haste. You grit your teeth and focus on your own task, but the image stays with you, the angry red welt forming on the slave's shoulder, the utter lack of recourse or mercy. As hard as your work is, at least you are free and will earn a wage. The slaves labor without end or reward, driven only by fear of punishment. After what feels like endless trips back and forth with the carrying poles biting into your palms, the foreman finally calls for a break. The block pile is much diminished now, and the masons have plenty to set for the moment. You roll your shoulders and flex your hands. They are already blistering, new raw blisters forming on top of old calluses from previous days. Your partner, the man who lifted the other end of the stones, drops his end of the pole and stretches, arching his back until it cracks audibly. He's older than you by maybe 20 years, skin leathery from sun. He gives you a gap-toothed grin of commiseration, sweat cutting rivulets through the dust on his brow. Hard graft, eh? He says mildly. You nod, wiping your face with the back of your arm. Hard indeed. Your stomach flutters with emptiness, reminding you that the bit of bread at dawn is long gone. You step aside to a shaded wall to take a swig from the leather water skin you carry. The water is lukewarm and tinged with a slight goatskin flavor, but it soothes your parched throat. Around you, the other hired laborers are also resting briefly, some sitting on piles of rubble, one massaging his own knee. The slaves at the mortar pit, however, do not dare stop. The overseer allows them only the briefest pause to drink, then urges them on to mix a new batch. You watch as one slave, an older man with a grizzled beard, pauses to wipe lime out of his eye. His hands are coated in the chalky paste, and he succeeds only in reddening his eye further. The overseer scowls but lets him blink it out and continue rather than risk him going half blind. The foreman comes by and presses a small clay cup into each free worker's hand. It's a measure of sour wine, part of the wage, or perhaps to keep you all from collapsing in the heat. You murmur thanks. The cup is chipped on the rim, and a line of hairline cracks runs through its glaze, but it holds the dark, watered wine well enough. You take a sip. It's bitter and acidic, clearly cut with vinegar and more water than wine. Still, the mild sting of alcohol and vinegary bite wake you up and give a small spark of energy. You remember hearing that Roman soldiers drink a similar concoction, pasca, a mix of vinegar and water, to keep hydrated and kill any impurities in the liquid. It isn't pleasant, but it's safer than plain water sometimes, and cheaper than good wine by far. The break is over too soon. Your arms tremble with fatigue as you heft the poles again, muscles protesting the renewed strain. The sun now beats down fiercely from nearly overhead, and the white dust of the yard turns into a blinding glare. You narrow your eyes to slits, trying to see where you're stepping. Heat shimmers and waves off the stones and sand. By the time the last block is moved, your tunic is soaked through with sweat, and dust clings to every inch of your skin. You cough as you inhale some stirred-up grit and taste limestone on your tongue. Finally, the foreman declares the hauling done and waves you off. It's nearly midday, and you've earned your 1 denarius. You drop the wooden pole with a thud, too exhausted to care that it might splinter, and rub your raw palms on your tunic. The foreman tosses each of you a small pouch with coins. When you peek inside, you see the promised denarius, a day's standard pay for unskilled labor, along with a couple of random bronze coins as a bonus, perhaps a kind gesture, or simply what was on hand. It's not a fortune, but it will put food on the family table tonight and keep the rent collector at bay for a little longer. You tuck the pouch securely into your belt and take a moment to catch your breath. Midday in Rome is often a time when work slows. Many laborers take a meal break or even a short nap during the hottest hours. The wealthier citizens retreat to their homes for a leisurely prandium, lunch, or to the baths to refresh themselves. But for people like you, there is no lavish meal waiting, only whatever you might afford from a street stall or what you carried with you. You dust off your hands and look around for a source of food. The morning's toil has left you lightheaded and hollow-stomached. Luckily, just outside the construction site, the streets are lined with vendors and small cook shops catering to the working crowds. You wander over to a cluster of food stalls at an intersection where a savory medley of smells competes with the city's usual stench. One stall owner is ladling out steaming porridge from a big pot, likely a simple grain pottage with some herbs. Another is selling flatbread spread with a bit of olive paste or soft cheese. You spot a cauldron of lentil stew bubbling at a thermopolium counter, redolent with garlic and leek. Your mouth waters at the thought of warm food. You count your coins discreetly inside your pouch. You decide to part with a few of the smaller bronze asses for a humble meal. Stepping up to the stall with the lentil stew, you place an order. The vendor, a plump woman with flour-dusted arms, scoops a ladle of thick stew into a coarse clay bowl and hands it over in exchange for a couple of coins. The bowl is chipped on one side, and the stew is more watery than you hoped, with just a few lonely beans and onion pieces swimming in the broth, but it is hot and smells of rosemary. You thank her quietly and shuffle to the shade of an awning to eat. The first spoonful of lentils warms your belly and seems to ease the tight ache of hunger. The stew is undersalted and a bit burnt at the bottom, but right now it tastes wonderful. As you eat, you tear off bits of a cheap barley flatbread you also bought and use it to sop up the liquid. The bread is coarse and dry, likely mixed with ground beans or acorn flour to stretch the grain, but it's food. In a few minutes, the bowl is empty, and you feel significantly better. Not full by any means, but not faint with hunger either. Many days you cannot afford to eat until evening, so this is a welcome midday reprieve. Around you, the sounds of the city's noon emerge. In the lull of work, more voices carry. Across the way, a trio of children dart around a produce seller's cart. Two boys and a little girl, all barefoot, are begging for any bruised fruit he might spare. The vendor shoos them away, but not before tossing a wrinkled fig toward them to avoid bad luck from turning away the needy completely. The kids snatch it up and split it among themselves, giggling. You watch them run off, likely to try their luck at the next stall. Street children like them are everywhere. Some are orphans who live by their wits. Others perhaps have parents working nearby, but run freely through the forum until someone calls them home. They scavenge, carry small loads for a coin, or sell whatever odds and ends they can find. You see one of the boys had a handful of used corks and rags. Perhaps he'll offer them to stall owners for plugging jars or wiping tables, anything for a scrap of food. As you lean against a wall to rest, you glance down at your own appearance. Your arms are dusted white up to the elbows, and grime streaks your tunic. A smell of sweat and lime clings to you. Flies have begun to notice, buzzing around your legs where bits of plaster have stuck. You swat them away, but they persist. Rome is alive with flies in the heat of midday. They rise in swarms from the garbage piles and latrine openings. You can see a cluster of them feasting on a crust of something in the gutter a few paces off. It reminds you that you should visit the public latrine before you head to your next task. Luckily, a public latrine forica is located not far down the street, attached to the side of a bathhouse. You make your way there, navigating around a pile of rubble from some ongoing road repair. The latrine is a small roofed space with an open doorway. Inside, it's dim and packed with a row of stone seats that have keyhole-shaped openings cut in them. One or two other men are there relieving themselves, sitting comfortably side by side as they converse about the chariot races scheduled for next week. The smell in the latrine is pungent, though not as overwhelming as one might expect. There is a small channel of running water beneath the seats, fed by the bathhouse drains, which carries waste away into the sewers. Still, the lack of any real ventilation means the odor of human filth hangs in the warm air, and flies crawl on the damp floors and walls. You take a seat with a bit of apprehension, mindful of the gossip about creatures and fumes lurking in the sewers. Some say there are rats or snakes that might bite you where you least wish to be bitten, or that disease miasmas waft up from the darkness. In fact, as you situate yourself, a sudden rustle beneath the stone opening makes you tense, perhaps a rat disturbed by the new arrival. It's not an uncommon sight to see rats scampering along the drains, fattened on the city's refuse. You try to finish your business quickly. Instead of toilet paper as usual, there is only the communal sponge stick, a sea sponge tied to the end of a short wooden handle, sitting in a bucket of vinegar water on the floor. You grimace at it, knowing it has been used by countless others today alone, but there's little choice if you want to clean yourself. You rinse the sponge as best you can in the running water of the gutter at your feet, then use it briefly and gingerly. It's moist and cool, not entirely unpleasant, but the thought of who used it before is unavoidable. When done, you dunk it back into the vinegar pail for the next person. Before leaving, you pour a tiny splash from a water jug over your hands. There's a basin for basic washing, though without soap, it's more a token gesture. You wipe your hands on your tunic. As you step back out into the sunlight, blinking, you catch a glimpse of a small sign etched into the wall near the latrine door. It's a bit of graffiti, a rough carving of letters that reads, "Cave Canum Urinae," or something to that effect, warning people not to urinate on the walls outside. Clearly someone had been using the alley as a toilet, and another got annoyed. Graffiti like this, whether humorous or angry, pepper the city. The walls talk, as they say, carrying messages from ordinary Romans, complaints, Advertisements, love notes, insults, scratched or painted for all to see. You run your fingers over a newer looking scratch mark. It looks like someone etched a crude curse here too, invoking Jupiter to punish whoever stole a cloak from the baths. People have odd ways of seeking justice when the courts don't bother with petty theft. Feeling slightly more comfortable after your quick rest and relief, you weigh your options for the afternoon. The foreman's job is done and paid. Sometimes you would simply go home after a half day's work, but the rent looming in your mind urges you to seek another bit of income if possible. Perhaps a merchant in the forum needs help unloading a cart, or the road crews need an extra hand repairing the flagstones. You decide to wander toward the market plaza to see if any other odd jobs present themselves. The forum is a cacophony of midday activity. By now, the elite have concluded their morning business, and many have departed, leaving the public spaces to merchants, tourists, and laborers like yourself. The heat is sweltering. The sun overhead offers no mercy as it bakes the paving stones. You can feel it radiating up through your thin sandals now, warming the soles of your feet uncomfortably. Every now and then, a tepid breeze wafts through, but it brings little relief. Only the smell of the nearby butcher's stalls, where blood and offal from the morning's slaughter are beginning to turn sour in the heat. You pass a row of fishmongers packing up the last of the morning catch. Flies cluster thickly on the fish scales and guts that have dripped onto their tables. The smell of fish, sharp and rotten sweet, hits you and you reflexively breathe through your mouth until you're past. A few unsold fish lie in the sun, eyes cloudy, destined perhaps for the garbage heap, if no desperate soul buys them for cheap soon. One vendor, wiping sweat from his brow, curses the heat for ruining his wares. He's dumping buckets of salted water over the fish in a vain attempt to keep them fresh a bit longer. Further along, you see a group of foreigners, perhaps from the east, judging by their robes, clustered around a man with a small performing monkey. The monkey chatters and does flips in the street to the tourists' delight. You skirt around this little gathering, nearly bumping into a city slave who is sweeping debris from the edges of the forum square. The slave, a wiry man with a blank expression of duty, drags a coarse broom made of twigs across the ground, pushing litter and dust into a pile. His feet are dusty and bare. The task is endless because new trash falls as soon as he clears the old. Peanut shells, broken bits of pottery, wilted leaves from garlands, and plenty of horse manure tracked in by animals. All of it must be swept up eventually. As you pass, he pauses to straighten his aching back. You catch his eye and exchange a brief look of understanding. You both spend your days in toil to make this city run, while those with wealth step around you. He says nothing, nor do you, as he bends again to his Sisyphean sweeping. At the edge of the forum, where it transitions into a warren of narrower streets, you find what you were hoping for, a wine merchant's cart half unloaded, with the merchant and his assistant looking hot and overwhelmed. Several large clay amphorae of wine still sit on the cart bed, and they are trying to move them into a little shop. Each amphora is nearly as tall as your waist and filled with wine. They must weigh close to 100 pounds. The assistant, a scrawny youth, is struggling with one end of a jar, panting and red-faced. You step forward and offer help, pointing to your strong back. The merchant eyes you and quickly agrees on a price of a few coins, if you can help him unload the rest without breaking anything. Carefully, you hoist one of the amphorae onto your back, securing it with a rope sling that the merchant provides. The weight is awkward. The clay jar is smooth and hard against your shoulder blade, and you must lean forward to balance it. With measured steps, you carry it into the shaded interior of the wine shop. The merchant directs you to set it down in a corner among other amphorae. You ease it to the ground, mindful not to knock it and risk a crack. The clay resonates with a low clunk as it settles. Immediately, you feel a warm trickle of sweat run down your back from the exertion. Amphora by amphora, you repeat the process. It's taxing work, but at least it's a shorter task than the stone hauling. While you work, the merchant busies himself wiping the amphora tops and checking the wax seals. The sweet odor of wine fills the shop. This is cheap stuff meant for local taverns, but to you it smells inviting. Perhaps it's mixed with honey or spices. You catch a whiff of something like resin or herbs, likely from the wine's preservation method. The merchant, seeing you eye the jars thirstily, chuckles and says, "Hard work, friend? I can offer a cup when we're done." True to his word, once the last amphora is safely inside, he produces a simple ceramic cup and dips it into a smaller cask behind the counter. He hands it to you. You take a grateful sip of the wine. It's a touch sour and diluted, as expected, but with a hint of sweetness that suggests figs were added. It slides warmly down your throat and brings a faint flush to your cheeks. You exchange a few pleasantries with the merchant as he counts out a few small coins for you. He complains about the cost of donkey feed these days and how one of his old amphora cracked in the summer heat yesterday. You nod sympathetically. In truth, you're just happy to have earned a little extra without breaking your back entirely. You finish the wine, wipe your mouth, and thank him for both the drink and the pay. With a couple more coins in your belt, you step back outside into the glaring afternoon. By now the sun is past its zenith. The city often grows a bit calmer in these early afternoon hours. Some shops close for a short while, and many people are indoors eating or resting. You decide it's time to make your way toward the public baths to wash off the grime of the day's labors. With luck, a brief soak will soothe your sore muscles and rinse the dust from your skin before you head home. You certainly can't afford a private bath in a domus, but Rome's public thermae are available to people of all classes for a modest fee, and some, like the one near the Forum, even allow free entry at certain hours or for favored locals. As you walk, you pass through a quieter residential street for a change. Here, away from the market's chaos, the sounds are gentler. From one open doorway, you hear the rhythmic grinding of a hand mill and the soft voice of a woman humming a working song. Peeking in as you go by, you see a young mother seated on the ground with a rotary quern between her knees. She is grinding wheat into flour for her family's evening bread, her toddler playing with a stick in the dust beside her. The woman's hands are thick with calluses, and her forearms strain as she turns the millstone again and again. It's hard work. You know that even an hour of it can leave the muscles burning, but it's the only way to get flour if you aren't wealthy enough to buy fine ground meal. The sight reminds you of your own mother and sisters back home when you lived in the countryside, up at dawn, grinding grain or pounding it in a mortar, day after day. The song she hums has a melancholy lilt. Perhaps she's thinking of something other than the ache in her arms, trying to pass the time. You also notice, near the edges of this quieter lane, a series of narrow covered clay pipes running along a ditch, part of the local drainage or water system. One section of the pipe has cracked, and sewage is leaking out, creating a dark puddle buzzing with flies. The smell of rank water and decay rises from it. It looks as though the neighborhood residents tried to stuff rags and mud around the break as a temporary fix, but to no avail. This is a common scene. The ancient sewers and plumbing require constant maintenance, and in poorer areas, leaks can go unrepaired for weeks. People end up stepping over these filth-filled puddles every day, holding their breath against the stench and hoping the water they draw from the public fountain isn't being contaminated by similar unseen leaks. Shaking your head, you skirt around the smelly puddle and continue on. A group of little kids skip by, playing some form of tag with shrieks of laughter. They are barefoot and dirty-faced, but their energy in the afternoon sun is infectious. One bold little girl stops and waves at you, asking if you have any sweet dates or treats in your pouch. "Nothing today, little sparrow," you reply gently. She wrinkles her nose in a comical pout and then runs off giggling to rejoin her friends. You smile to yourself despite your fatigue. Rounding a corner, you finally see the brick facade of the neighborhood bathhouse ahead. It's not one of the grand imperial baths, but a medium-sized establishment with a steady clientele of tradesmen, freedmen, and the occasional slave given an hour off to wash. You fish out a single quadrans coin, a tiny brass piece, as the entry fee. In some baths, children enter free, but as an adult, you pay this token. Sometimes, benefactors subsidize the baths, and entry is free. But today, you're not so lucky. Inside, the air is warm and steamy, the sounds of splashing water, echoing voices, and the laughter of bathers bounce off the mosaic-tiled walls. The attendant, a skinny man with a towel slung over his shoulder, takes your coin and hands you a small lamp and a bronze token that corresponds to a storage cubby. You undress in the appetitorium, the changing room. Tucking your tunic and belongings into a niche, you rub your fingers over the welt left by the amphora on your shoulder. It's tender, a bruise blossoming there. Clad only in a loincloth, you shuffle forward into the bath's main halls. You follow the typical routine. First the tepidarium, the warm room, to acclimate and start sweating out the grime. The tepidarium's air is moist and mild. You sit on a bench for a moment, relaxing in the dim light. Warm floors heated by the hypocaust beneath soothe the soles of your feet, which are still a bit sore from all the morning's standing and walking. Around you, a few others lounge as well, chatting in low voices. Two old men are discussing the grain dole and how this year's harvest from Egypt might be delayed. Another man near you simply leans back with eyes closed, perhaps even dozing. Soon, sweat beads on your skin, loosening the caked-on dust and dirt. When you feel sufficiently warmed, you proceed to the caldarium, the hot bath. Immediately, a wave of heat and humidity engulfs you, carrying the sulfuric tang of the heated water. The caldarium is a steamy chamber with a large marble tub full of nearly scalding water. A couple of men sit in it, up to their chests, their faces flushed red as they soak and converse. You ease yourself in carefully. The water bites at your skin with heat at first, but then your body adjusts, and a deep relief settles into your muscles. You submerge yourself to the neck, letting the hot bath work its magic on your tired back and shoulders. Grime swirls off your body into the water, faint brown tendrils drifting away. The other bathers don't mind. The water is constantly refreshed by a flow from the boiler, and a drain carries out the dirty overflow. You run a hand through your hair, scrubbing out dust. Nearby, a portly man with a kindly smile offers you his strigil, a curved metal scraper used for cleaning the skin. Gratefully, you take it and begin to scrape your arms and legs. Normally, you would oil yourself first to loosen the dirt, but oil is a luxury, and you have little of it. Even dry, the strigil pulls away a surprising layer of filth. Sweat, dust, and dead skin form gray rolls that collect on the blade. You flick the gunk to the side and continue scraping until your skin tingles pink and clean. The portly man, a butcher by trade, judging from a large scar on his forearm, perhaps from a slaughterhouse accident, makes light conversation. He complains good-naturedly about a rash on his leg that won't go away. You glance at it, an angry red patch, perhaps a fungal infection from constantly standing on wet floors at his work. He mentions he's tried vinegar and garlic rubs to no avail. You nod in sympathy, sharing that your own feet often itch from the damp and filth you wade through daily. Try soaking them in salt water, he suggests. The legionnaires swear by it when their feet grow fungus. You thank him for the tip and return the strigil after cleaning it. The heat eventually becomes too much, and you move on to the frigidarium, the cold pool, for a final rinse and cool down. The cold water is a shock. You gasp as you dunk yourself in the small circular pool, but it immediately closes your pores and leaves you feeling invigorated and clear-headed. Tiny goosebumps prickle your skin as you climb out, water streaming off of you. A slave attendant hands you a rough towel, which you use to briskly pat yourself dry. You can't help but notice the attendant's tired eyes and the scarred brand on his upper arm, likely a mark from his owner. He must tend to hundreds of bathers a day, fetching towels, oil, and scraping sweat off the floors, all for no pay and under watch. You nod in thanks to him. He nods back silently and goes to collect another used strigil left on a bench. Before dressing, you linger a moment in the courtyard of the bathhouse, where fresh air mixes with the bath steam. Off to one side of the courtyard, a few men are exercising. One is lifting hand weights of lead, grunting loudly with each repetition, while another practices boxing with a partner, their fists wrapped in leather strips. Each punch lands with a smack, and the partner grunts, not unlike the noise you recall from earlier at the construction site. A pair of older gentlemen are playing a board game on a marble table under the colonnade, perhaps passing time until they feel ready to leave. The atmosphere here is markedly more relaxed and sociable than the hard grind of the workday outside. As you dress, you overhear snippets of casual conversation around you. The water in the baths is too dirty today. Someone came in covered in mud. Must have been at the stables. One man is telling another with a disapproving cluck of his tongue. "My friend, you think this is bad?" his companion replies, chuckling. "At least we have a bath. In the countryside, I had to wash in the river, mud and all, and in winter, ice in my hair." They both laugh. You smile faintly to yourself. It's true, for all its flaws, the Roman bathhouse is a blessing. Even the poorer folk can come wash the day's grime off, soak aching bones, and enjoy a modicum of civilized leisure. Your own muscles feel much better after the hot soak. The cuts on your forearm and the blister on your palm have been cleaned. You hope they won't fester. You pull your tunic back over your head and fasten your belt, feeling almost human again, though your clothes are still dusty and smelly. The bath only cleans the body, not your one set of garments. At least your skin no longer itches under a layer of sweat. Stepping out of the bathhouse back into the street, you squint at the brightness of the late afternoon sun. The day is moving on. You consider heading home to rest, but you know there may be more tasks waiting there. Your mother might need help with some repair, or your father could send you on an errand. Life for common Romans offers very little idle time. Nonetheless, you allow yourself a brief moment to just stand and observe life around you on the walk back. In the golden afternoon light, the city's imperfections are on full display. You pass a line of laundry hung out to dry that flutters dustily as a cart rumbles by. A one-legged beggar sits by the bathhouse door, hand outstretched and head bowed. You drop one of your smallest coins into his palm, and he whispers a blessing at your departing back. A mangy dog trots past, carrying a stolen string of sausages from some butcher's stall, pursued in vain by an apprentice cook who throws his hands up as the dog disappears into an alley. Two women gossip loudly from adjacent windows across the street, practically shouting their business for half the neighborhood to hear. One complains about the price of charcoal, the other about her lazy son-in-law. You come upon the fuller's workshop down the road. Here the smell of ammonia from collected urine is overpowering even after the cleansing scents of the bathhouse. Large clay jars of urine, which people donate at public urinals or even keep at home for the collectors, stand by the entrance, ready to be used in the cloth cleaning process. Inside the gloom of the workshop, you see slaves and workers stomping on cloth in big vats of diluted urine to wash out dirt and grease from garments. They do this all day, barefoot in the acrid liquid, their legs and feet doubtless bleached and rash-covered from the constant exposure. One poor fellow steps out of a vat, wringing pale yellow liquid from the hem of his tunic. He looks utterly exhausted, but the overseer motions him to another task immediately. These fullers, vital for keeping tunics white and wool soft, pay the price with their noses and health. You hasten your steps to move beyond the reach of the stench, breathing shallowly. The path to your home is unfortunately downwind of this workshop, a fact you and your neighbors have cursed often. But the Fulanaka has been there longer than most residents, and complaining to the authorities about the smell would accomplish nothing. Instead, folk just pinch their noses and live with it. As you turn a corner, you nearly collide with a small procession coming down the street. Drawing back, you press against a wall to let them pass. At first, you think it might be a funeral. The group is quiet and moving at a solemn pace, but then you notice at the center a man in chains flanked by two lictors carrying rods. This is a prisoner being taken to punishment or jail. The man's face is drawn and ashen. He stares at the ground. A few onlookers mutter under their breath. One woman crosses herself in a gesture of pity or thanks that it isn't her loved one. As the group passes, you catch a snippet of whisper. What did he do? Scribbled something insulting on the wall of the magistrate's house, they say. The other person tut-tuts. Foolish. They'll flog him and toss him in a cell for that. You shiver slightly, despite the warmth of the day. A chill of fear always accompanies the sight of chains and rods, the instruments of Roman justice. It reminds every citizen and non-citizen alike that the city is not gentle with those who step out of line. A careless word or a bit of graffiti criticizing a powerful man can indeed land you in serious trouble. In this world, you keep your head down and your opinions quiet, unless you want them beaten out of you. The prisoner's small procession disappears around the bend, and normal street life resumes as if it were but a passing cloud. But the incident stays with you. You recall bits of gossip. The new magistrate had been furious at some scrawled poem calling him corrupt. Looks like he found a scapegoat. The punishment for defacing property might be a harsh beating, or possibly worse if they claim it's treasonous libel. You sigh, thankful that reading and writing are skills you have only modestly, enough to get by, but not enough to compose satires that could anger the wrong person. Safer to be illiterate sometimes, you think wryly. Soon you re-enter the narrow, familiar lanes of your own neighborhood. The sun is getting lower now, shadows stretching longer from the high walls. You pass the butcher's shop near your insula, a place you rarely buy from, as meat is expensive. Out front, a couple of his apprentices are scraping down the shop front, trying to clean off the blood that has dried in streaks. A pile of hooves and horn pieces lies in a basket, maybe to be sold to glue makers or dumped later. The heavy smell of raw meat and offal has attracted flies by the dozens here too. They swarm around the shop's drains where diluted blood trickles away. One of the boys, clearly fed up with the insects, takes a swipe with his rag and curses, "By Hercules, these flies are going to eat me alive." You duck past, avoiding a few stray flies yourself. Just ahead, you see your mother out near the entrance of your building, talking quietly with a neighbor woman. The neighbor holds a swaddled bundle, a baby with a flushed face, fussing softly. As you approach, you hear snatches of the conversation. The neighbor is worried because the baby has a fever and a rash. Your mother is advising some cool compresses and a prayer to Juno, perhaps for the child's health. They both look up as you come near. Your mother's eyes widen when she sees your dusty tunic and the tired set of your shoulders, evidence of a hard day's labor. She gives you a small, sympathetic smile. "Back already? You worked very hard." "I see it on you," she says softly, brushing a bit of white dust out of your hair. You manage a smile and nod. "We will have a decent supper tonight," you reply, patting your belt where the coins jingle faintly. Your mother's face brightens with relief. Every coin helps. The neighbor woman offers a quick word of congratulations on the work, and then shifts the whimpering baby in her arms. Your mother turns back to her and suggests they go inside so she can help grind some barley water for the baby to drink, an old remedy for fever. As they disappear indoors, you linger outside for a moment. The evening air is beginning to stir, a welcome breeze that wicks the sweat from your neck. Up and down the street, small moments of daily life carry on. A pair of slaves trudge by, carrying an enormous ceramic amphora on a pole between them, likely fetching fresh water from the fountain for a wealthy house's dinner. One slave's back is striped with scars visible through his thin tunic, remnants of punishments long past. He avoids eye contact as they pass. Not far behind, a decently dressed man strolls with a purposeful air, perhaps a minor scribe or shopkeeper heading home, a wax tablet tucked under his arm with the day's accounts. A stray chicken struts across the road, clucking as it pecks at crumbs, oblivious to the fact that it might become someone's stew if caught. You inhale deeply, smelling wood smoke now, the many hearths and braziers of the neighborhood being lit to start cooking the evening meal. It is a comforting smell, mingling with the savory hints of whatever simple foods are on the menu tonight, perhaps lentil soup or a vegetable porridge. Your stomach contracts in hunger at the thought, reminding you that the midday bite was modest. With a final glance at the reddening sky, streaks of orange and purple painting the clouds, you turn and head back through the curtain into the insula, ready to have a brief rest before night falls fully. Evening shadows lengthen, and your family gathers in your cramped room for the evening meal. A single clay lamp is lit, its tiny flame fluttering and sending soft orange light over weary faces. The meal is humble but warm, a pot of millet porridge mixed with chopped leeks and a few shreds of salted fish for flavor. Your mother ladles it into wooden bowls. The aroma is modest, a bit of garlic, a bit of greens, but to your hungry stomach it is tantalizing. You all sit on stools or crates around the flickering lamp, heads bowed a moment as your father murmurs a thank you to the household gods for this food. You eat slowly, savoring each spoonful to make it last. The porridge is thick and slightly bland. Your mother stretched it with plenty of water to feed everyone. Still, there are a few slices of radish and some crushed herbs in it that give the illusion of substance. You chew on a piece of tough fish and sip a cup of weak wine that has been further watered down for the whole family to share. It's sour and leaves a tang on your tongue, but it lightens the heaviness of the meal. Your little brother scrapes his bowl eagerly and glances around for more. Your mother shakes her head gently and pats his arm. There is no more tonight. He sighs and leans back against the wall, stomach not quite full, but at least no longer cramping with hunger. The conversation is quiet, subdued by the fatigue of the day. Father mentions that the price of grain in the market has gone up again. He frowns, worry creasing his brow. If the grain shipments from Egypt are delayed much longer, he murmurs, there could be unrest. You all know what that implies. Long bread lines, angry crowds, maybe even riots like those you've heard about in past years when food grew scarce. Your mother crosses herself and says softly, Jupiter willing, the ships will come soon. We have little ones to feed. No one speaks for a moment. In the lamplight, the fear in her eyes is evident. You remember hearing of a food riot that happened when you were a small child. People in the slums smashed bakery stalls and stormed granaries because they were starving. Soldiers eventually marched in to quell it, and afterward the city was eerily silent, several familiar neighbors having disappeared overnight for their part in the chaos. The thought sends a little shiver through you. Your father sighs and adds softly that there are even rumors of new conscriptions for distant wars. He glances at you and your brother with a worried furrow in his brow, uneasy at the prospect that the Empire might demand one of you for the legions. He himself served briefly as a youth. and knows the harshness of that life. The idea hangs in the air heavily. Each of you silently prays such a fate will not come to pass. He then clears his throat and changes the subject, not wanting to dwell on dark possibilities. The talk turns to the little baby next door, the feverish infant your mother was worried about earlier. Through the thin wall you can hear faint crying. The poor thing is still suffering. Your mother plans to check in on them later with some lukewarm water and honey as a treatment. She sighs, remembering others lost to childhood illness. We must pray for her, she says. So many children, she doesn't finish the sentence, but you all know what she means. So many children never make it to their first year. Your father gently assures her the baby will pull through, though his voice carries the weight of uncertainty. There are no doctors for people like you, only home remedies and hope. If the gods are kind, the child will survive. If not, by morning the family next door may be plunged into grief. Your older sister, who usually would be helping your mother serve the meal, is absent from the table. She married last year at just 14 and moved to her husband's home across the city. Tonight, your mother mentions that the girl is already expecting a child of her own. She shakes her head with a mix of pride and worry. So young, she murmurs, I was barely older when I had her. You recall your sister's wedding day. She was dressed in a plain white tunic, eyes downcast, and barely spoke 2 words. Her husband, a man nearly twice her age, looked pleased as she was handed over to him. It was not her choice to marry so soon, but the family needed the dowry money and a secure household for her. Now she's essentially a woman grown, though still a child in years, about to face the dangers of childbirth. Your mother promises herself to visit in a few days to help when the baby comes. She and a neighborhood midwife will do what they can, but every birth is a perilous gamble. You all know women who went into labor and never returned, leaving behind tiny motherless infants. No one says this aloud, of course. Instead, your father offers a toast of sorts, raising his cup to a safe delivery for our girl. The rest of you echo quietly, to a safe delivery, and drink the diluted wine, tasting the hope in those words. Outside, darkness has fully settled. Through the door curtain you see that the sky is moonless tonight, an inky black dotted with a scatter of stars. The noises of night in the city begin to filter in. In the distance, a mule-drawn wagon clatters over the stones. The nighttime deliveries are underway, since by law, heavy carts are not allowed during the busy daytime. The wagoner shouts an oath at his stubborn animal, and the sound echoes through the narrow streets. Another wagon further off answers with its own rattling wheels. It seems a whole caravan of produce and goods is moving after sundown, as usual. The sounds are loud and jarring against the relative quiet of the evening. You recall Juvenal's sardonic advice that only the very rich on their secluded hills sleep well in Rome, for the rest must endure the thunder of wagons and curses of drivers that could wake even a dozing seal. A faint wry smile touches your lips at the thought, even as you resign yourself to another noisy night. Your family begins tidying up from dinner. You help your mother scrape the last bits of porridge from the pot to save perhaps to mix into tomorrow's dough. Every crumb is precious. Water from the jug is poured to rinse bowls, and the slops are carefully collected. No one will throw them out the window now. After the morning's cleaning, people try to refrain from making more mess until absolutely necessary. Instead, the little bit of greasy water might even be reused to soften barley for breakfast. One by one, your family members prepare for sleep. Your mother and father murmur a few final prayers at the household shrine, thanking the gods for seeing you through another day. A tiny portion of the meal, some crumbs of bread, and a spoon of porridge has been placed in a dish as an offering to the Lares, the guardian spirits. The dish sits now by the shrine, a humble gesture of gratitude and a plea for continued protection. Your father also quietly invokes Vesta to watch over your hearth through the night, guarding against fire. The flicker of the lamp makes the little clay figures of the gods seem to dance on the wall. You spread your straw pallet in your usual corner. The straw inside the burlap sack has flattened and shifted. You fluff it as best you can, though a broken stalk jabs out and pricks your leg. You'll need to gather fresh straw soon, but that might have to wait until you can get out to the countryside or bribe a stable hand for some. With a sigh, you lie down, adjusting a rolled cloak as a pillow under your head. Around you, the rest of the family settles in. Your little brother curls up beside your mother on their mat, and the old tanner who lodges with you is already snoring softly on his makeshift bed near the door. The lamp is dimmed to just a glimmer for safety. Too much flame and you risk a fire. Too little and you risk stubbing a toe or stepping on a scorpion in the dark. The low light casts a golden curve on the ceiling through the smoke haze that still lingers from cooking. From outside, new sounds join the nocturnal symphony. A pair of drunken voices argue down the street, perhaps patrons stumbling out of a wine shop still open late. They shout slurred insults at each other until a third voice, maybe the tavern keeper, hushes them angrily and pushes them along. Somewhere a dog starts barking furiously, likely at those same raucous men or at a stray cat. The barking sets off another dog down the block, and soon a chorus of canines is baying at the night. Your neighbor's infant cries intermittently. The poor thing's wail piercing even through the walls. Each time, the crying tapers into muffled sobs, perhaps the mother managing to nurse or rock the baby back to fitful sleep. This cycle repeats every hour or so, each time the infant's cry cuts through your heart, reminding you that life here spares no one, not even the newest and smallest. As you shift on your mat, trying to find a position where the straw doesn't poke and your sore muscles can relax, you feel the day's aches acutely. Your knees throb from all the stair climbing and heavy lifting. When you stretch your legs, one knee joint cracks audibly. Your shoulders are stiff and tender from carrying stones and amphorae. Every now and then, a hot sting flares from the blister on your palm or the scrape on your forearm. You will have to keep an eye on those wounds without proper salves. Even a small cut can fester. Perhaps tomorrow you'll find some marigold or honey to apply, folk remedies to ward off infection. The room is stuffy, as only a single small window shutter is open to the outside and the air is still. In summer, nights can be sweltering in these insular rooms, with heat radiating from the sun-baked walls and no breeze to provide relief. You recall nights when you lay in a pool of your own sweat, listening to mosquitoes whine around your ears, the bites forming itchy welts across your limbs. Malaria lurks in those mosquitoes. Everyone knows the fevers hit hardest in the late summer. Perhaps that's what ails the baby next door. You think drowsily, some marsh-born fever carried by a tiny winged pest. Tonight, however, the temperature is moderate. You're grateful that at least you won't sweat through your only tunic in your sleep again. A faint draft does come through the window now and then, carrying the distant smell of the river and the refuse of the streets. It's not a pleasant scent, stale water, rotting garbage, but it is the smell of home nonetheless. You pull a thin blanket over yourself, noticing as you do that it's taken on a sour odor. Everything in this environment eventually does. The smoke, the sweat, the proximity of too many people in tight quarters without proper cleaning. You make a mental note to rinse the blanket out soon, perhaps at the fountain or the river if you get time. Despite the discomforts and the noise, your exhaustion is overwhelming. Your eyelids droop heavily. Your body craves rest so deeply that it begins to ignore the din outside. Even the rumbling of a heavily laden cart passing directly under your window, its driver cracking a whip and shouting "Iya" at his ox, only makes you stir slightly. A blessed weariness descends, and you start to drift. As you hover on the edge of sleep, your mind wanders in loose looping thoughts. Images of the day play behind your closed eyes, the glaring white dust of the construction yard, the kind face of the butcher in the baths offering you his strigil, the little girl at the fountain with her water jug. These visions blur into earlier memories and random sensations. You think of the countryside briefly, the smell of wheat fields from your childhood before the family moved to the city, the sound of a rooster crowing at dawn. How different that life was, simpler perhaps, but with its own hardships. Your breathing steadies. The hard floor beneath you almost seems to soften as your muscles unclench bit by bit. The hubbub of Rome fades to a background murmur. You can still hear the muffled voice of a late-night street seller somewhere calling out hot chickpeas for sale, Cesare Caldi to any remaining passers-by, and the faint metallic scrape of a guard's sword or armor as he makes his rounds. But these sounds grow distant in your ears. In the quiet of your dozing mind, other scenes begin to unfold, almost as if in a dream. You find yourself imagining beyond your little insular room, beyond Rome itself, to the far reaches of the empire under the same night sky. Far to the north, on a windswept frontier, a Roman soldier stands shivering on sentry duty. In your mind's eye, you picture him wrapped in an itchy woolen cloak, helmet pulled down against a drizzle of cold rain. He is keeping watch outside a timber fortification wall, peering into a dark forest that could hide fierce barbarian raiders. The weight of his armor and kit, his mail shirt, shield, and sword has been his burden all day as he marched along muddy roads. His feet squish in wet socks inside hobnailed boots, and he quietly curses the endless damp that has mildewed the bread in his pack and given him trench foot between his toes. By the glow of a small brazier near the guard post, you see him pull out a thin wooden writing tablet during a lull in his patrol. With numb fingers, he holds a stylus and scratches a few lines in Latin, a letter to his family back in Italia. He writes by firelight that he is alive and well, downplaying the constant fatigue and danger, and gently begs for a parcel of warm undergarments if they can manage it. Indeed, at his side lies a recent package from home. Inside were 2 pairs of wool socks, a set of underpants, and new sandals, gifts from his mother to ward off the biting British cold. He allows himself a small smile, thinking of her care, but his smile fades as a trumpet call signals the changing of the guard. He still has hours of duty left this night. He rolls up the wax tablet, deciding to finish the letter tomorrow if spare time permits. A gust of wind snuffs the brazier, plunging him into darkness until his eyes adjust to the dim starlight. Nearby, through the thin leather walls of their tents, he hears his fellow legionaries muttering and rustling, some playing dice by lantern, some snoring, others quietly praying for morning to come. The soldier knows that discipline is everything here. He recalls the story of a legion punished by decimatio years ago, every 10th man executed because they had shown cowardice in battle. That lesson looms over them all. No one wants to be the cause of such an extreme penalty or to draw the fatal lot. So he straightens his back, grips his spear, and paces attentively despite the ache in his knees and the chill in his bones. Out in those foreign hills beyond the fort, wolves howl at the moon and an enemy arrow could fly without warning. Comfort is scarce, but duty is not, and so under drizzling rain, the Roman soldier endures his lonely vigil, dreaming of a distant home he might not see for many years. Back in Rome, under that same canopy of stars, life in the city presses on through the night. In the palatial home of a wealthy senator across town, lamps still burn in an elegant triclinium where the family has just finished a late banquet. But behind their grand chambers, in the cramped servants' quarters, an enslaved wet nurse cradles the senator's infant son, who is woken hungry and wailing. She yawns, exhaustion heavy on her eyelids, as she offers her breast to the child, a child not her own, while somewhere her own baby, sold away to another household, might be crying for a mother's milk that will never come. She hums a lullaby from her village, tears of fatigue and sorrow pricking at her eyes, but she dare not stop or rest. The mistress expects the boy to be quiet all night, and any failure could mean a beating at dawn. Elsewhere in that mansion, another slave, a young kitchen maid, scrubs the last of the fine dishes long after the masters have retired. Her fingers are pruny and raw from hot water and lye soap. As she scars an oily amphora, she silently counts the years left in her indenture, if indeed she was promised freedom at all. Not far off, her friend, the scullery maid, nods off for a second on her stool, only to jerk awake and continue plucking the feathers from a pheasant that will be served tomorrow. They exchange a weak smile and a few whispered words to keep each other awake, knowing they must toil until everything is spotless. In the silence of the grand atrium above, their owners sleep soundly, unaware of the two slave girls still working by a flicker of rushlight below, shoulders aching and eyes burning with fatigue. Across the city in a modest insula, much like your own, a midwife makes her way up a narrow stair, carrying a flickering lantern and a satchel of herbs. She has been summoned to aid a girl of 13 in a difficult labor. In a one-room apartment lit by a single oil lamp, the young mother-to-be lies on a blanket on the cold stone floor, knees drawn up, sweat pouring down her face, despite the chill of the night. Her youthful husband hovers anxiously at the doorway, wringing his hands, until the midwife brusquely shoos him out to boil more water. The laboring girl cries out in pain as another contraction grips her. She is scared. She had heard stories of women perishing in childbirth, and now she feels the shadow of that fear. The midwife herself, an older enslaved woman who has delivered dozens of babies in her lifetime, kneels by the girl's side and holds her hand, guiding her through the agony with firm, calm encouragement. Hours will pass in struggle on that hard floor before, with luck, a squalling infant finally emerges into the midwife's skilled hands. But not every such night has a happy outcome. The midwife has seen mothers or babies not survive, and she carries those ghosts in her weary heart. Still, she does her work with steady resolve, praying under her breath to Juno Lucina, patroness of childbirth, to spare this girl and child. And somewhere in a dingy alley beneath an arched doorway, two little street children curl up together for warmth. The older sibling, a boy of maybe 10, has gathered some rags and straw into a makeshift bed on the stones for himself and his younger sister. She nestles against him, stomach growling lightly. They had only a crust of bread to share today, scavenged from a trash heap behind a bakery. The boy strokes his sister's hair and tells her a simple story, something about a kind baker who gives two clever children a loaf of warm bread until she falls asleep with her thumb in her mouth. He gazes at the dark shapes of buildings overhead, trying to ignore the scuttling sound of a rat nearby or the shouts of distant revelers. In his child's mind, he makes a wish on a particularly bright star that he imagines might be a benevolent deity. Maybe tomorrow, he thinks, they'll find a coin or a kind soul who will buy them breakfast. For now, he endures the hunger pangs and the gnawing worry of what dangers the night might hold, be it cruel older youths who could bully them or a city guard who might chase them off. Pulling a tattered blanket over his sister's shoulders, the boy shuts his eyes and hopes for a peaceful night, as peaceful as two orphans can hope for on the streets of the empire. All these lives, all these souls, share the same night with you, each bearing their burdens. Fear is never far away here, fear of hunger, of pain, of the authorities, of the unknown. Superstitions weave through everyone's minds in the dark. In quiet corners, there are those who seek otherworldly help for their woes. perhaps down by the old well at the crossroads. Under cover of darkness, a cloaked figure furtively unwraps a small lead tablet. On it are scratched words of curse and vengeance, an anonymous plea to the gods below to punish a thieving neighbor who did them wrong. The figure whispers the incantation, voice trembling with emotion, then tosses the rolled lead scroll into the stagnant water of the well. With a soft plunk, the cursed tablet sinks to lie among dozens of others at the bottom. The supplicant slips away, heart pounding, half ashamed and half hopeful that the divine powers will heed their secret request. Such whispered curses are the recourse of the powerless, a way to feel some agency in a world where justice often does not extend to the lowly. Back in your little room, a fitful breeze slips through the window and caresses your face. You are neither fully awake nor fully asleep, drifting in a hazy realm of exhaustion. Through your half-open eyes, the lamp's glow has faded to a tiny ember. Your mother's gentle snores are a soothing rhythm nearby, and the old tanner wheezes now and then in his slumber. You pull your threadbare blanket up to your chin. The aches in your body have dulled. A numb heaviness settles in, pleasantly blurring the day's pains. Somewhere in the distance, on the Capitoline Hill, the great bell in the watchtower tolls a late-night hour. Its deep, resonant note rolls across the sleeping city. In your dreamlike state, the bell's toll mingles with the creak of your insula's timbers. The old building emits a chorus of sounds in the cool night, the wood contracting with soft pops, the plaster in the walls occasionally crumbling with a tiny tick. You've heard tales of entire insula collapsing in the middle of the night, structures weakened by age, gnawed by time and termites, simply giving way and burying their occupants alive. It happened not long ago in a neighborhood not far from here. 3 floors pancaked in an instant after a heavy rain weakened the foundation. The tenants had complained of cracks, but the landlord did nothing until it was too late. Now, whenever your own building groans unusually, or a support beam shifts, a quiet tendril of fear curls in your gut. Lying in the dark, you find yourself holding your breath, ears straining for any ominous creak beyond the normal symphony of an old building. But tonight, nothing seems amiss. The noises remain familiar and steady. You exhale and let your eyelids fall closed. Your thoughts grow fuzzy. Perhaps you even start to dream, fleeting images of walking through a sunny forum with coins jingling in your pocket, or of an endless flight of stairs you must climb while carrying a heavy load, your legs like lead. The dream shifts, and you see a small grave by a roadside marked with a crooked wooden peg. You somehow know it's the resting place of a child, one of the many lost too soon. In the way of dreams, the scene is at once peaceful and achingly sad. A sparrow lands on the peg and sings in the dawn light. Suddenly, you are woken by a brief commotion, a scream or shout very near, jolting you from the edge of sleep. Your heart leaps into your throat as you prop yourself up on one elbow, listening. What was that? A woman's cry? You listen intently to the darkness. Then you hear it, a muffled shout, a man's angry voice, the sound of scuffling feet on the street outside. It's very close by, perhaps right in front of your building. Your father has stirred too. You see his silhouette sit up. Curiosity and caution war within you. Such disturbances at night can mean trouble. Sometimes the urban cohorts, the city guards chase criminals through the alleys, or a drunken brawl erupts among tavern goers. Or worse, a burglar is caught and neighborhood men take justice into their own hands. You quietly rise and tiptoe to the window, peering through the cracked shutter. Below, in the scant light of a distant torch, you can just make out 2 figures grappling. The torch belongs to a city watchman who stands a few paces off, holding the light aloft and shouting orders. It appears they've caught a thief, A lanky youth is being wrestled into submission by another bulkier guard. The youth struggles fiercely, but he's no match for the trained watchman, who soon pins his arms behind his back. The first guard holds the torch closer, and you catch a glimpse of the captive's face. He can't be older than 17, eyes wild with fear. A woman stands off to the side, clutching a shawl around her nightclothes. That must be the one who screamed. Perhaps the boy tried to snatch something from her window or broke into her home. She's pointing and yelling now, her words carrying indistinctly. Caught him climbing out. Thief. The guards nod and begin half dragging, half walking the bound youth down the street. His protests echo briefly. I didn't, please, until a solid thwack, likely a cudgel to his side, silences him into pained compliance. Within moments, the strange little drama passes out of view around a corner, leaving the street empty again. The neighbor woman, still shaking, bolts her door and retreats inside. Your father exhales loudly. Thieves, he mutters under his breath. Desperate fools. You both return to your beds. Your heart is still pounding from the adrenaline of the surprise. It strikes you that in this city, one can never fully relax one's guard. Danger or chaos can erupt at any hour. But at least tonight justice was swift, for better or worse. The unlucky boy likely faces a brutal flogging or a stint in the city prisons, and if he's a repeat offender, perhaps worse. You lie back down, feeling pity and relief swirl within you. Pity for the boy. How hopeless must one be to risk life and limb for a few valuables? Relief that it was him and not some violent madman harming innocents, and that your own family is safe and undisturbed. Slowly, the household settles once more. Your mother has slept through most of it, only stirring slightly when you and father moved about. Your brother is curled up, oblivious to the drama outside. As your racing heart calms, you notice that somewhere along the line, the neighbor's baby has gone quiet. Perhaps finally the fever broke and she sleeps. Or perhaps, no, you push the darker possibility aside. Surely the baby is resting, giving her poor parents a brief respite. You choose to believe that for the alternative, that the silence is permanent, feels too heavy to contemplate at this hour. In the hush that follows, a different kind of silence falls over the insula and the streets beyond, a deeper lull as the night passes its midpoint. Even the animals seem to doze. The dogs have curled up, the strays retreating to alleys, and the chorus of barks has ceased. The last wagon of the night rumbles faintly in the far distance, leaving a tranquility broken only by the chirping of crickets among the city's hidden gardens. You drift again toward sleep. This time, nothing interrupts. In these final hours of the night, the city lies in a rare stillness. For a short while, the exhaustion of the populace weighs heavier than all their cares, and they rest. Your own mind floats in the darkness, no longer roused by pain or worry, but settling into a dreamless slumber. In your last semi-conscious thought, you marvel in a vague way at the sheer fullness of the day you've endured. Only one day, dawn to midnight, and yet it contained a universe of hardship and small mercies, fear and hope intermingled. How much more of this can one person take? As many as life will give, you think distantly, because there is no choice. This is life in the Roman Empire for people like you, unrelenting, strenuous, and fragile. You live it one day at a time until your days run out. With that thought, you finally slip fully into sleep, the kind of deep, heavy sleep that comes from pure exhaustion. Your breathing steadies, your limbs relax utterly on the straw pallet. In your dreams, perhaps you wander a peaceful countryside, or find yourself at a clear, cool spring, quenching an endless thirst. Perhaps you dream of a world where you feel safe and satisfied, far removed from the grit and struggle of these streets. Unseen in the starry sky above, the constellations march onward. The night grows cool and very dark just before the first hints of dawn. All across Rome, many of the poor and downtrodden remain tucked in, uneasy sleep like yourself, snatching a few hours' respite from their labors and sorrows. In a quiet street beyond the city gate, a small group of the faithful are carrying a body to burial by lantern light, walking in respectful silence, a final kindness done under cover of darkness so the dead may rest undisturbed. They carry no ornate coffin and hire no musicians. It is a rudimentary funeral born of necessity and love. Earlier, they did what they could, washing the body with a bit of wine and water, wrapping it in a plain cloth shroud, and placing a few wildflowers with it. No priest accompanies them, only a relative softly humming a lament through tears. Their destination is a humble grave on the city's outskirts, perhaps a small pit in a common burial ground, or a space purchased collectively through a burial club. There may be a wooden marker or a pottery shard scratched with the departed's name to mark the spot, but more likely there will be no lasting memorial. By sunrise, the earth will cover the shrouded form. The mourners will whisper final prayers and then slip away before the city stirs, leaving the departed to rest in peace. On a lonely hill, a line of gibbets holds the silhouettes of crucified criminals and rebel slaves, their bodies still in death as crows gather with the coming light, an ever-present warning to those who might challenge the empire's might. And by the river's edge, the embers of a communal pyre glow faintly, where the anonymous dead, beggars, vagrants, and those without family, have been burned to ash and smoke that mingles with the morning mist. In time, workers will gather the cooled ashes and stray bones and tip them into pits already layered with the remains of those who died before. These common graves are reused again and again, each new body mingling with generations of nameless poor. Hardly any of these unfortunates received a proper epitaph or marker. Their identities, if ever recorded, fade swiftly from the living world. Only those who can afford a carved stone or an entry in some ledger may hope for their names to endure. For the vast majority, their light passes quietly out of memory, as obscure as the smoke that now disperses into the dawn. Yet life continues. As the very first pale glow of pre-dawn appears in the east, Rome begins to stir once more. A cock crows from somewhere in the distance, and then another answers, shrill signals of the coming morning. In your room you remain asleep, oblivious for now to the new day about to break. Soon enough the cycle will begin again. The carts will rattle, the vendors will cry out, the stairs will fill with footfalls of people rising to meet the day's demands. But for these last few moments, there is a gentle quiet. In this fragile quiet, your tired mind finds a slice of peace. The city holds its breath between night and day. You unconsciously curl tighter under your blanket, savoring the final instants of rest before reality calls again. For now, in this brief respite, the burdens of Roman life are put aside. There is just you, breathing softly in the dark, and all around you the collective sigh of a city in slumber. The ancient world sleeps, and so do you. In this shared silence across millennia, there is a sense of unity, a bond of human experience. Hard as life was in the Roman Empire, they found their moments of rest, just as you find yours now. So close your eyes and imagine and let the hush of ages cradle you into a deep and healing sleep. Good night, and sleep well.